Hi, everyone. So I think I'm the last one, so hopefully this will be somewhat exciting and, if not, maybe a little uplifting, come out of the darkness a little bit. So in 2018, the Park Service had funding to look at invasive species transport issues. So we chose to apply this to look at some of the human dimensions of aquatic invasive species transport from Lake Mead National Recreation Area out through the western U.S. So our Lake Mead AIS program is divided into three major parts: containment, education, and monitoring. So we chose to focus our efforts on looking at containment and education. So our approach was to look at our vessels, which were inspected at Lake Mead, also inspected at other state inspection stations, and were the vessels that were inspected at other state inspection stations also inspected at park inspection stations within Lake Mead. I know that says the word inspection station a lot, but just kind of trying to look at the overlap and the correspondence between inspection at Lake Mead and elsewhere throughout the western U.S. And then what are the potential gaps in this? And also look at our educational component to see if we can target visiting voting populations using demographic analysis to better target our outreach efforts. So to analyze containment, our methods, we obtained data from 2016 to 2018 from inspection stations from surrounding western states for vessels coming from Lake Mead and Mojave, and also and we pulled out the vessel origin and their reported destination. And we also pulled data from the same years for inspection station from 4 Nevada Department of Wildlife inspection stations within Lake Mead. And we also looked at those vessel origins and destinations, and we used ArcGIS to compare the two data sets and map all the reported destinations out. So this is some of our preliminary results. So these are reported destinations from vessels that were inspected by Nevada Department of Wildlife inspectors within Lake Mead National Recreation Area. So as you can see on the map, the major concentration of people leaving Lake Mead who were inspected by NDOW inspectors were going to the local Southern Nevada, Las Vegas, and Southern California area. And then this is the reported destinations for the data contributed by other Western state agencies. So, and this data shows reported destinations throughout the West with some major hubs in Southern California and Colorado, Utah, and Idaho. So then we overlaid these two maps together, and pretty much this shows that there needs to be a further analysis to kind of understand why these two maps, may or may not be corresponding. And things like the WID app would be really useful in getting a higher quality of data, since this was all user-reported destinations. So these are all just the boaters giving us their reported destination, which may or may not be as accurate as we would like it to be. So we also were interested in looking at if vessels were inspected in the state that they said was their reported destination. So we color-coded based on the state the vessel was inspected in, and then we tried to look at if that was also the state of their intended destination. So these were the vessels that we highlighted that were not inspected in the state that they reported as their destination. So this kind of just also shows that there might be a greater need for further inquiry into why there might be these vessel movement patterns. So that's all kind of, there wasn't a lot we could get out of that origin and destination data, since it was mostly user-reported data, but this was the much more fun part of the study. So we were looking at demographics to determine ways we could outreach to our boating populations and educate them on the dangers of invasive species. So we obtained data from 2016 to 2018, the same data we used in the previous analysis, but here we were looking at the home zip codes and not the origins and destinations. So we also used ArcGIS Online and this really cool Esri Tapestry program to analyze the demographics of these recreational boaters based on their home zip code. So the Esri Tapestry program is a program designed based on US Census data. So it basically overlaps the connection between where you live and your demographic characteristics. So the different color, I know it's probably pretty hard to see on here, but the different colors all represent a different classification group that this system has decided. So we can see that there's similar demographics throughout the Midwest, the Southeast. These are similar groups of people who live in these areas. And that's all tied to their location and various demographic factors. Esri, their tapestry program divides out into these life modes. And within the life modes, so the life modes are these circles at the top. And there's segments underneath. So these are all, the life modes are the broad overreaching categories, and the segments are some individual divisions within that category. So these are all different demographic groups that the Esri team has come up with to represent different groups of individuals. So they kind of gave them fun colors and cute names. So this is one example of a group that's, oops. Oh, thank you so much. So this is an example of one group, the soccer moms, which falls under this family landscapes category. So that's just the fun name Esri gave them. And so we can learn a lot about these people just based on their zip code. So we can tell from here that the soccer moms, they're most likely married, they have children, they live in single family housing. Their median age is right around 37. We know that they're most likely to shop and bank online. They own 2 vehicles, more likely a minivan or an SUV. They go jogging, biking, shopping, and have a median income around $84,000 a year, and they most likely hold a college degree. So this is all data that's pulled just based on their zip code. You can even do further analysis and type in your exact address, and it will narrow it down even further to which category you might fall into. This is kind of this tapestry was really developed for business marketing. So it's like for Starbucks to decide where their market might be. They can look and be like, oh, well, soccer moms are more likely to buy Starbucks, so we'll go put more Starbucks where soccer moms live. But this is kind of the first application for this program to a natural resource problem and kind of tying it back into how these species might be moving and who might be moving them. So these were our results. This is from the data that was collected by our NDOW inspectors within Lake Mead. And so we basically just entered all of the zip codes that we collected into this program, and it outputs all of this cool information. So it tells us for the whole group, their median age is right around 36. They make a median income of right around $70,000 a year. So not shocking for boat owners, they have a higher than average median income. But the average age or the median age was a little lower than we anticipated it might be. It pulls out our top 3 tapestry segments, which happen to be the up-and-coming families, the Boombergs, and the soccer moms. So they're all just fun little names, but if you go onto on Esri Tapestry's website, you can click on all of these different life segments, and it will give you like a 4 or 5 page analysis on all of these interesting types of details about these people's lives. So we did the same analysis for the data that was given to us from other state agencies. So this looked at and we drew pretty much the same conclusions. The average age was right around 36. Median income was above $60,000. And they almost had the exact same three top Tapestry segments. So they had up-and-coming families, soccer moms, and this one called Middleburgs. So when we're looking at these two data sets, they're really similar. So this tells us that people who are boating within Lake Mead are very comparable to the people who are boating throughout the western US. Since we know recreational boaters are very likely to not just boat at one water body, but are boating throughout the area, this tells us that we're appealing to a similar demographic of people, regardless of what region you might be doing your AIS work in. So they're very comparable on a lot of different factors. So race, education, their professional level, their income, age, what they spend their money on, which type of transportation they use, and their technology usage. So they're very comparable across all of this data that was collected. So some conclusions that we can make are that really we need more analysis to better understand the boater movement patterns and the potential gaps that exist in boater movement from one reservoir to the next. And a redundancy of AIS programs is critical. So in order to maintain a containment reservoir, we not only need our own quality inspections, but we also rely on partners throughout the state and having these double layers of protection. And we can better target outreach and education using this demographic information. So using age and education level, we can better target outreach materials like pamphlets, what we put on our websites, what we use in signs. And since we saw that the median age was right around 36 for both of these groups, that's a relatively young population, and that they're probably more likely to derive a lot of their information off of web-based materials. So the use of social media in advocating for AIS outreach, and the use of having a lot of information available on the websites. And we can create tailored outreach campaigns for these different groups. Since they all have pretty similar values and interests, they're more likely to respond to the same educational campaigns. Unfortunately, there were some challenges and limitations to doing this research. So limited data exists to assess effectiveness. So we were only really looking at origin and destination points and boater zip code. We weren't looking at how effective these inspections were. And there's no, the data quality is really uncertain because it was dependent on user reports. So depending on what the boater decided their home zip code was, maybe just the zip code they register their boat in, it may be where they actually live. There's no way for us to really tell. So there may be inconsistencies due to the user reporting pattern. And the current data provides a limited ability to track the vessels. Again, we were really only looking at origin and destination points. So we can't really ascertain anything about the routes that might have been taken to get from point A to point B. And since we were working through the National Park Service's money and facilities, there's a lot of restrictions on personally identifiable information. So we weren't able to look at addresses or boater registration numbers at all. So this is kind of a level up, and with using addresses and boater registration numbers, we might be able to nail down these demographics and location patterns even better. And so I wanted to thank NPS for providing the funding for this project, and all of the state agency coordinators who I emailed who were kind enough to provide me with their data sets on their inspections. And I'll take any questions if anyone has any.
Taking clean drain dry to the soccer game.
So it was done at Lake Mead National Recreation Area.
Online?
Oh, you mean where Tapestry is? Or?
Do you have a report?
Oh, yes, it's in the works.
Okay. Any other questions?
figure out the button. So one of my questions, and it's actually kind of just more of a statement, but I felt like this was like uplifting in certain ways, but it also sort of bummed me out in other ways, because I was like, wow, what a lack of diversity of people like utilizing parks and lakes and boating and everything.
Just specifically recreational boaters, not
Right.
necessarily our park goers.
Yeah, for sure. But I think it's just like something to keep in mind too as we talk about like how to fund aquatic invasive species permits and decontamination programs and everything like that. Like just more fees sort of increases that lack of ability to access a lot of these areas, and whether we put fees for motorized boats or non-motorized boats, and just something to kind of close out the day and think about.
Hey, Mason, up to the front.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. I've kind of been harping on this for a few years now, and I think a lot of us are in the same boat, that there's definitely a need for a region-wide social science effort looking at a lot of the things that you brought up. So I think this is a great start and can feed into that effort. The one thing that I would caution us about is when we start talking about interests, that tapestry thing did not get at interests. It classified people into a certain demographic, but when you're talking about interest, you're talking about, what gets them interested in this issue. And that doesn't touch on that, and I think that's the thing that we need to look at, because just from my experience in Utah, when I was reaching out to some of the Boating Advisory Council members that I work with, they're boaters and they're representing a certain demographic. I thought the boaters would be more concerned about their equipment, their boats. That wasn't the case. They were more concerned about infrastructure, which was surprising to me because I felt like the only people that cared about that were the water districts. So I think we need to drill down more on the interests and potentially combine that with some of that information through Tapestry, and I think we can start really getting to the heart of who we need to be contacting, in what way, delivering what kind of messaging, and maybe who potential spokespeople may be that can better deliver that message for us. So.
Any other?
Okay, I agree with Nate, but thank you so much for this. Dealing with people and people responses, they're so difficult because people are people, and you never know what you're going to get. Some people tell you what they think you want to hear and all those things. But I did learn that I'm a soccer mom, so thank you. So, you did a good job. Thank you.
Oh, if anyone is interested, you can go to just Google Esri Tapestry. You can type in your home zip code, and it'll pop up the top 3 for your zip code that you live in, if you're interested.